The Korean Mafia boss's daughter was born deaf. What a black, single mother did. Next shocked all. The gunshot echoed through the marble halls of the Riverside estate at 3:47 a.m., but 6-year-old Hana Kim never flinched. She sat in her bedroom on the 3rd floor, her small hands folded in her lap, watching the shadows dance beneath her door. She couldn't hear the screaming that followed, couldn't hear her father's voice, cold, surgical, final, as he delivered judgment in the basement. Couldn't hear the pleading, the sobbing, the silence that came after. But she could feel it. The vibrations traveled through the floor like whispers from hell itself, crawling up through the Persian rugs, through the custom Italian furniture, through the bed where she sat perfectly still in her white nightgown. Her chest tightened. Her fingers curled. She knew what those vibrations meant. Someone had broken her father's rules. Someone was gone now, and tomorrow he would smile at her over breakfast, like nothing had happened. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, welcome to a story that's about to grip your heart and refuse to let go. I'm so glad you're here. Drop a comment below and let me know. Where in the world are you watching from? Are you team late night story binges, or are you here with your morning coffee? Either way, I see you, and I appreciate you. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this story. This one's different. This one's going to break you open and put you back together. Now let's dive in. Hana's world was built on contradictions, luxury and violence, silk sheets and bloodstains that the housekeepers scrubbed away before dawn. Her father, Kang Dae Kim, was a ghost in the underworld, feared from Seattle to San Francisco, respected in rooms where respect was bought with brutality. He ran the West Coast's most efficient Korean crime syndicate with the precision of a surgeon and the mercy of a winter storm. But to Hana, he was just absent. Even when he was in the room, he would sit across from her at the long dining table, his sharp suit immaculate, his face carved from stone, and try to communicate. His mouth would move, tight, controlled, frustrated, and his hands would gesture stiffly, awkwardly. He'd hired tutors to teach him sign language after Hana's mother died 3 years ago, but Kang Dae learned it the way he learned everything, as a tool, not a language. Clinical, emotionless. Eat, sleep, study, obey. That was the extent of their conversations. Hana had stopped trying to reach him years ago. Her mother had been the only one who truly saw her. Ji-eun had learned to sign fluently, had sung to Hana with her hands, had made their silent world feel full. But then came the cancer, swift, merciless, and Kang Dae, for all his power, couldn't threaten it into submission, couldn't negotiate with it, couldn't make it disappear. So he did what he always did when faced with something he couldn't control. He buried it. The funeral was elaborate, expensive, empty, and Hana became an orphan in a house full of people who feared her father too much to love his daughter. For 3 years, a rotation of nannies cycled through the Kim estate. None lasted more than 6 months. Some quit because they couldn't handle the tension. The armed guards, the late-night meetings, the way violence perfumed the air like expensive cologne. Others were fired for incompetence, for showing too much emotion, for asking too many questions. Kang Dae's instructions were always the same. Keep her fed, keep her clean, keep her out of my way. No one was supposed to love her. That was the problem. The nannies who tried were always the first to go. Kang Dae would see them braiding Hana's hair with too much tenderness, or catch them laughing silently with her over some private joke, and his jaw would tighten. Within a week, they'd be gone, replaced by someone colder. Someone who understood that Hana Kim was not a little girl. She was the daughter of a king, and kings didn't raise children. They raised legacies, but legacies needed to be managed, and Kang Dae was running out of options. That's when Min Jun, his right hand, and the closest thing he had to a friend, made a suggestion that would change everything. There's a woman, Min Jun said carefully, standing in Kang Dae's office on a grey April morning. She worked at the community center downtown, deaf education specialist. References are impeccable, quiet, professional. She needs work. Kang Dae didn't look up from the contracts he was reviewing. Why would I care about some social worker? Because she survived worse than you, young. That got his attention. Kang Dae's eyes lifted. Dark, dangerous, evaluating. Min Jun continued. Single mother, Nigerian. Raised her son alone after her husband was killed in a shooting 3 years ago. Wrong place, wrong time. She knows loss, she knows silence, and she knows how to love a child who lives in a violent world without becoming part of that violence. Where's the son now? College. Full scholarship to UCLA. Pre-med. Kang Dai leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. And you think this woman can handle Hana? I think, Minjun said carefully, that Hana needs someone who sees her as a child, not a problem. And I think you need someone strong enough not to be afraid of you. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Kang Dai nodded once. Bring her in. Amara Okonkwo arrived at the Kim estate on a Thursday morning with a single suitcase, a worn leather bag full of teaching materials, and a spine made of steel wrapped in grace. She was 42 years old, though she looked younger, smooth dark skin, natural hair pulled back in a simple bun, eyes that had seen too much but refused to harden. She wore a modest blue dress and comfortable shoes, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed for attention. But when she stepped out of the car and looked up at the sprawling mansion, she didn't gasp, didn't look impressed, didn't look intimidated. She just looked steady. The head of security, a mountain of a man named Dong Wu, escorted her inside. The house smelled like money and secrets, leather, wood polish, and something metallic she couldn't quite place. Her nursing background kicked in. Blood. Old blood. Scrubbed clean, but never quite gone. She'd expected that. What she hadn't expected was the silence, not the absence of sound. She'd worked with deaf children for 15 years. Silence was her native language. No, this was different. This was the silence of a mausoleum, a place where people existed but didn't live. Dongwoo led her to Kang Dai's office on the second floor and knocked twice before entering, and there he was. Kang Dai Kim stood by the window, backlit by grey Seattle light, his silhouette sharp enough to cut. When he turned, Amara understood immediately why men feared him. It wasn't his height, though he was tall, maybe 6'1". It wasn't his build, though he was clearly strong beneath the tailored suit. It was his eyes, flat, assessing, the eyes of a man who'd made peace with violence long ago. Ms. Okonkwo. His English was flawless, barely accented. Thank you for coming. She nodded. Mr. Kim. He gestured to a chair. She sat. He remained standing. A power move, she noted, but one she didn't react to. You understand the unique nature of this position? I understand you have a 6-year-old daughter who is deaf and has recently lost her mother. I understand you need someone who can provide educational support and emotional stability. I understand your household is unconventional. The corner of his mouth almost twitched. Almost. Unconventional. That's diplomatic. I'm not here to judge your business, Mr. Kim. I'm here for your daughter. His eyes narrowed. You're not afraid? Amara met his gaze without flinching. I've buried a husband, Mr. Kim. I've raised a son in a neighborhood where gunshots were the soundtrack to dinner. I've loved deeply and lost everything. Your world doesn't scare me. It just makes me sad. For the first time in the conversation, Kang Dai looked genuinely surprised. Before he could respond, the door opened, and Hana walked in. She was small for 6, delicate, like her mother had been, with long black hair and eyes that held galaxies of loneliness. She wore a pink dress that looked expensive and uncomfortable, and her hands hung at her sides like she'd forgotten what to do with them. She looked at her father first, a quick glance, checking for approval or danger. Amara couldn't tell which. Then her eyes found the stranger in the room, and something shifted. Amara didn't stand, didn't rush forward, didn't smile too wide, or move too fast. She simply raised her hands and signed, smooth and natural. Hello, my name is Amara. What's your name? Hana's eyes went wide. It had been 3 years since anyone had signed to her with fluency, with ease, with the kind of grace that said, this is my language too. You're not alone. Slowly, hesitantly, Hana's hands lifted. Hana. That's a beautiful name. Amara signed back. It means flower, doesn't it? The smallest smile ghosted across Hana's face. She nodded. Kang Dai watched this exchange with an expression Amara couldn't read. When Hana glanced at him, he signed stiffly. This is your new teacher. You will respect her. Hana's smile vanished. She nodded again, robotic. But when her eyes returned to Amara, something flickered there. Hope. Fragile. Terrified. But there. And Amara knew in that moment that she wasn't walking away from this child. Not for anything. Even if it meant stepping into a world built on blood. So, what do you think? Is Amara brave or crazy for taking this job? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Amara moved into the east wing of the Kim estate that same afternoon. Her room was twice the size of the apartment she'd shared with her son, Chidi, back in South Seattle. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than most people's salaries. The bed was massive, draped in linens that felt like clouds. There was even an ensuite bathroom with heated floors and a rainfall shower. It was beautiful. It was lonely. It was exactly the kind of cage wealthy people built to forget they were trapped. She unpacked slowly, methodically. Photographs went on the nightstand. Chidi at his high school graduation, beaming in his cap and gown. Chidi as a toddler, gap-toothed and laughing. And one of her wedding day, her in traditional Nigerian attire, her late husband Ikenna beside her. Both of them so young, so convinced they had time. She traced his face with one finger, whispering a prayer in Igbo, then set the frame down gently. I'm still here, my love, still fighting, still loving. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. She opened the door to find Min-jun standing there with a tablet, and what might have been the ghost of a smile. Settling in? He asked. Getting there. Amara stepped aside, letting him in. You're the one who recommended me. Min-jun, right? He nodded, setting the tablet on her desk. I did my research, checked your references, spoke to families you've worked with. Everyone said the same thing. Which was? That you see children other people overlook. That you don't give up. That you love fiercely, even when it costs you. He met her eyes. Hana needs that. She needs someone who won't leave. Amara crossed her arms. And what does Mr. Kim need? Min-jun's expression flickered. Something dark, something sad. That's a more complicated question. Try me. He was quiet for a moment, weighing his words. Kang-dae wasn't always like this. When he and Ji-eun first married, he was different. Softer. She brought out something in him that his world had tried to kill. But then Hana was born deaf, and Ji-eun got sick, and every soft thing in him turned to stone. He thinks love makes you weak, makes you vulnerable. And in his world, vulnerability gets you killed. So he pushes his daughter away to protect her. He pushes everyone away. Min-jun's voice dropped. But Hana's not like him. She's like her mother, gentle, empathetic, desperate to connect. And every day she reaches for him, and every day he pulls back, it breaks something in both of them. Amara absorbed this, her heart aching for the little girl down the hall. Does he love her? More than anything. That's why he's terrified. Before Amara could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Chidi lit up the screen. Mom, you good? This place isn't sketchy, right? I can come get you. She smiled, typing back. I'm fine, baby. Focus on your finals. I love you. His response was immediate. Love you more. Be safe. Min-jun noticed her expression. Your son? My heart, Amara said simply. He thinks I'm crazy for taking this job. Are you? She laughed, low and genuine. Probably, but I've never been good at playing it safe. If I was, I would have stayed in Nigeria, married someone my parents chose, lived a quiet life. Instead, I fell in love with a man who made me believe the world could be kind, moved to a country that chewed us up and spit us out, and lost him to a stray bullet meant for someone else. Her voice didn't waver. So no, I'm not afraid of your boss, or his world. I've already survived the worst thing that could happen to me. Min-jun studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I think you might be exactly what this family needs. I'm not here to fix the family, Amara corrected gently. I'm here for Hana. Everything else is between her and her father. And if he makes that impossible, her eyes hardened just slightly, then he and I are going to have a problem. Dinner that first night was a study in dysfunction. The dining room could have seated 30 people comfortably. Instead, 3 figures occupied one end of the absurdly long table. Kang-dae at the head, Hana to his right, and Amara directly across from the child. The meal was elaborate. Korean dishes prepared by a chef Amara never saw, served by staff who moved like ghosts. Kang-dae ate with mechanical precision, barely looking up from his plate. Hana picked at her food, her eyes darting between her father and her new caretaker. Amara ate slowly, calmly, and then did something radical. She signed to Hana. Do you like japchae? Hana blinked, surprised to be addressed. She nodded hesitantly. Me too. My son taught me to make it. Well, he tried to teach me. I'm not very good. Amara's hands moved with warmth, with humor. I added too much sesame oil, and it became soup. The corner of Hannah's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Do you cook?" Amara asked. Hannah shook her head, signing back. "No, chef cooks." "Would you like to learn?" Hannah's eyes widened. She glanced at her father nervously. Kang Dai was watching them now, his expression unreadable. Amara met his gaze steadily, then signed and spoke simultaneously. "I was asking Hannah if she'd like to learn to cook. It's a good life skill. And it can be fun." "She doesn't need to cook," Kang Dai said flatly. "We have staff for that." "Respectfully, Mr. Kim, everyone needs to know how to feed themselves. It's about independence, confidence, connection." She turned back to Hannah. "What do you think? Want to try?" Hannah looked at her father, then at Amara, then slowly, bravely, nodded. Kang Dai's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He simply returned to his meal, dismissing them both with his silence. But Amara saw it, the way his hand clenched around his chopsticks, the way his eyes lingered on his daughter's smile. He wasn't as indifferent as he pretended to be. After dinner, Amara walked Hannah to her bedroom, a cavernous space filled with expensive toys that looked barely touched. Everything was white and pink and pristine, like a photograph in a magazine. Beautiful and sterile. Hannah sat on her bed, hands folded, waiting for instructions. Amara knelt in front of her, bringing herself to the child's eye level. "Can I tell you something?" She signed. Hannah nodded. "You don't have to be perfect around me. You don't have to sit still and quiet and small. I know the world has taught you that's how you survive, but not with me. With me, you can be loud." She gestured expressively. Big movements. "You can be messy, you can be silly, you can be sad. You can be all the things a 6-year-old should be. Okay?" Hannah stared at her, eyes shining with something that might have been tears. "Do you understand?" Slowly, Hannah nodded. Then she did something that shocked them both. She reached out and hugged Amara. It was tentative, careful, like she expected to be pushed away. But Amara wrapped her arms around the small body and held on, one hand gently rubbing circles on Hannah's back. "I've got you," she signed when they pulled apart. "You're not alone anymore." A single tear slipped down Hannah's cheek. Amara wiped it away with her thumb and smiled, genuine, warm, the kind of smile that promised safety. Across the hall, in his private office, Kang Dai stood at the window with a glass of whiskey, watching the city lights blur in the rain. Minjun entered without knocking, the only person who had that privilege. "She's good with Hannah," Minjun observed. "She's reckless," Kang Dai countered. "Teaching her to cook, asking her opinion, treating her like a normal child." "She is a normal child." Kang Dai's silence was sharp. Minjun sighed. "What are you afraid of, Hyung? That Hannah will be happy? That she'll love someone who isn't you?" "I'm afraid," Kang Dai said quietly, his voice like gravel. "That she'll get attached. And then something will happen to that woman, and Hannah will lose someone else. She's already lost her mother. I won't let her lose anyone else." "So your solution is to make sure she never loves anyone, including you?" Kang Dai drained his glass. "Love is a luxury we can't afford." "No," Minjun said, heading for the door. "Love is the only thing we can't afford to lose." He left Kang Dai alone with his ghosts and his guilt. That night, Amara lay in her expensive bed in her gilded cage and thought about the two people in this house who were slowly suffocating. A father who'd forgotten how to be human. A daughter who was desperate to be seen. And somehow, impossibly, she'd walked into the space between them. She thought about Ikenna, about the promise she'd made at his grave. "I'll keep loving, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts." She thought about Chidi, thriving at UCLA, becoming the doctor his father never got to be. And she thought about Hannah, with her galaxy eyes and her careful hands, and her hunger for connection. "Okay, God," she prayed into the darkness. "I don't know what I'm doing here, but if you brought me to this child, you're going to have to give me the strength to love her the way she deserves. And maybe, help her father remember he's still human underneath all that armor." Outside, rain drummed against the windows. Inside, something fragile and precious began to take root. Hope. And if you're loving this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the best stories are the ones we experience together. 3 weeks passed like a careful dance. Amara established routines. Breakfast at 8, lessons until noon, creative time in the afternoon, dinner at 6. She filled Hana's days with structure, yes, but also with joy. They painted with their fingers, leaving handprints across canvas like colorful promises. They baked cookies that turned out lopsided and perfect. They read books together, Amara's hands weaving stories through the air with such expression that Hana would laugh silently, her whole body shaking with delight. The child was transforming. She smiled more, initiated conversations in sign, started bringing Amara drawings she'd made, butterflies and flowers, and once, a portrait of the two of them holding hands. That one made Amara cry. But Kang Dai remained a shadow. He'd appear at breakfast, sign a few stiff pleasantries to Hana, then disappear into his office or leave the estate entirely for business. He never asked about Hana's progress, never joined their afternoon activities, never tucked her in at night. He was present, but absent. There, but gone. It infuriated Amara. One evening, after Hana was asleep, she found herself standing outside Kang Dae's office. She'd told herself she wouldn't interfere, that his relationship with his daughter wasn't her business. But watching Hana's face fall every time her father walked past her without really seeing her, that made it her business. She knocked. "Come." She entered to find him behind his massive desk, paperwork spread before him, the smell of expensive bourbon heavy in the air. He didn't look up. "We need to talk," Amara said. "If this is about Hana's curriculum, it's about you." That got his attention. His eyes lifted, dangerous and cold. "Excuse me?" Amara closed the door behind her and stepped further into the room, refusing to be intimidated. "Your daughter made you a card today. She spent 2 hours on it, drew flowers all over it, wrote, 'I love you, Appa,' in both Korean and English. She was so proud. She waited by the window for you to come home." Kang Dae's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "You came home at 9, walked right past her. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, holding that card. You didn't even glance at her." "I had business." "You always have business." Amara's voice was firm, but not angry. Sad, almost. "Mr. Kim, I'm not here to judge how you run your empire, but I am here to tell you that your daughter is withering. She's a flower trying to bloom in the dark, and you're the sun she's reaching for. You don't understand. I understand that you're afraid." She cut him off gently. "I understand that you lost your wife, and you think if you don't love your daughter too much, it won't hurt as badly when something happens to her. But that's not how love works. You can't ration it. You can't control it. You can only give it or withhold it. And right now, you're choosing to withhold it from a child who needs you desperately." Kang Dae stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You have been here less than a month, Ms. Okonkwo. You don't know anything about my family, my life, or what I'm capable of. I know you're capable of love because I see how you look at her when you think no one's watching." Amara's voice softened. "I see you standing in the hallway while she sleeps, just listening to her breathe. I see you keeping every single drawing she's ever made in the bottom drawer of your desk. I see you, Mr. Kim, and I know you're not the monster you pretend to be." The silence that followed was suffocating. Kang Dae's hands clenched into fists at his sides, his jaw working. For a moment, Amara thought he might explode, might fire her on the spot, might throw her out of his house and his daughter's life. Instead, his voice came out barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to be what she needs." And there it was, the crack in the armor. Amara stepped closer, her tone gentle. "Start small. 5 minutes at bedtime. Read her a story with your hands. Ask her about her day. Show up, Mr. Kim. That's all she wants. Just show up." He turned away from her, facing the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. "Every person I've ever loved has been taken from me. My father, my brother, my wife. Love is a target in my world, a weakness enemies exploit. And isolation is a prison you've built yourself." Amara moved to stand beside him, both of them looking out at the Seattle skyline. "Your daughter is already a target because she's yours. Loving her won't change that, but refusing to love her will destroy her. And I think, deep down, it's destroying you too." Kang Dae said nothing. Amara turned to leave, but paused at the door. "The card is on her nightstand. She'll keep it there, hoping you'll see it one day. Don't make her wait too long." She left him alone with his demons. The next morning, everything changed. Amara woke at 6 to the sound of her door slamming open. Min-jun stood there, face pale, urgency radiating from every line of his body. "Get Hana! Now! Don't pack! Don't ask questions! There's a car waiting!" Amara's training kicked in, years of emergency drills, of worst-case scenarios. She was out of bed and moving. "What happened?" "Rival gang found out about her. About you. They're sending a message. Minjun was already heading down the hall. You have 3 minutes. Her blood ran cold. She burst into Hana's room to find the child still sleeping, peaceful and unaware. Amara scooped her up. The girl stirred, confused, signing sleepily. What's wrong? We're going on an adventure. Amara signed with one hand while carrying her. Stay close to me. In the hallway, chaos erupted. Armed men in suits rushed through the house, weapons drawn, shouting in Korean. Kang-dae emerged from his office, gun in hand, face a mask of controlled fury. His eyes found Hana in Amara's arms, and something terrible crossed his features. Fear. Minjun, get them to the safe house. Now. What about you? I'm ending this. Amara didn't have time to process what that meant. Minjun was pulling her toward the back staircase, Hana clinging to her neck, the child's heart hammering against her chest. They made it to the garage when the first explosion rocked the house. The blast threw them sideways. Minjun shielded them with his body, and Amara curled around Hana, absorbing the impact. Glass shattered. Alarms screamed. Hana was crying silently, her mouth open in a scream Amara couldn't hear but could feel. I've got you! I've got you! I've got you! She signed frantically, checking Hana for injuries. Minjun was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but he was moving. Car, now! They stumbled into the armored SUV. The driver, a woman Amara had never seen, peeled out before the doors were fully closed. Through the rear window, Amara watched the Kim estate burn, smoke billowing into the dawn sky. And somewhere in that inferno was Kang-dae. Hana pressed against the window, signing desperately. Appa? Where's Appa? Amara pulled her close, signing with shaking hands. He's okay. He's strong. He'll find us. But she didn't know if that was true. The driver navigated through back streets. With terrifying precision, Minjun was on his phone, speaking rapid Korean, his expression grim. Hana sobbed against Amara's chest, and Amara held her tighter than she'd ever held anything, whispering prayers in Igbo. Chineke, protect this child. Protect her father. Don't let this be how the story ends. They drove for 20 minutes before pulling into an underground garage. The safe house, Minjun explained, was a nondescript apartment building in Tacoma. Secure, anonymous. Far from Kang-dae's known properties. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, basic furniture, nothing like the mansion. Amara settled Hana on the couch, checking her over again. No physical injuries, but the child was in shock, trembling, her eyes wide and terrified. We're safe, Amara signed. I promise, we're safe. Minjun's phone rang. He answered in Korean, listened, then his shoulders sagged with relief. He looked at Amara and nodded. He's alive. He's handling it. Amara closed her eyes, exhaling shakily. Thank God. But when she opened them, she saw Minjun's expression. What aren't you telling me? He hesitated. The people who attacked us, they weren't just sending a message. They were trying to kidnap Hana. They knew about her condition. They were going to use her to control Kang-dae. Ice flooded Amara's veins. How did they know? We have a leak. Someone inside the organization. Minjun's face hardened. And until we find them, neither of you is safe. Hana had fallen asleep, exhausted from trauma, her head in Amara's lap. Amara stroked her hair gently, protectively. How long do we stay here? Until Kang-dae neutralizes the threat. Could be days. Could be weeks. Amara looked down at the child sleeping trustingly against her. This little girl who'd already lost so much, who'd just watched her home burn. And she realized with crystal clarity, she wasn't just Hana's teacher anymore. She was her protector, her shield, her mother in every way that mattered. And if anyone tried to hurt this child, they'd have to go through her first. Miles away, in the smoldering ruins of his estate, Kang-dae Kim stood over 3 bodies. His suit was torn, blood, not all his own, splattered across his shirt. His knuckles were raw, his guns still warm. The men who'd attacked his home would never threaten his daughter again, but this was just the beginning. Dongwoo approached carefully. Boss, we secured the perimeter. No survivors on their side. Good. Kang-dae's voice was lethal. Find the leak. I want a name by morning. And the woman? The caretaker? Kang-dae's jaw tightened. He thought of Amara, the way she'd stood in his office the night before, fearless and truthful. The way she'd scooped up his daughter without hesitation, protecting her with her own body. He thought of the card on Hana's nightstand, flowers and childish handwriting, and love he didn't deserve. Keep them safe, he said quietly. Whatever it takes. Dongwoo nodded and left. Kang Dai looked at the burning mansion, at the empire built on violence and fear, and felt something crack in his chest. His father had taught him that power came from brutality. His wife had taught him that love was worth dying for. And now, this impossible woman, this Nigerian single mother with a spine of steel and a heart that refused to break, was teaching him something else entirely. That maybe, just maybe, love was worth living for too, even if it terrified him. Okay, pause. Drop a comment right now. What do you think is going to happen next? Is Kang Dai going to open up, or will he push them away to protect them? And who do you think the traitor is? Let me know below. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now is the time. This story is about to get intense. The safe house became their world. For 6 days, Amara and Hana existed in a bubble of forced calm, while chaos raged outside. Min-jun came and went, bringing supplies, updates, and increasingly tired eyes. The news was never good. 2 more attacks on Kim properties, a shootout in Chinatown, 3 rival gang members dead, and still no sign of the traitor. Kang Dai never came, but he called. Every night at 8, Min-jun's phone would ring, and he'd hand it to Hana. She'd press it to her ear uselessly, unable to hear her father's voice, but Amara would watch the child's face light up anyway, as if just knowing he was on the other end was enough. Then Amara would take the phone and relay messages. Hana learned fractions today, she'd report, keeping her tone light despite the tension. She's upset that you're not here for dinner. Kang Dai's responses were clipped, professional. Tell her I'm proud. Tell her I'll see her soon. She doesn't need soon, Mr. Kim. She needs you. A pause, then. Is she safe? Physically, yes. Emotionally, she's scared. She misses you. Keep her safe, Ms. Okonkwo. That's all that matters. He'd hang up before she could argue, but on the 7th night, everything shifted. It was close to midnight when the knock came. 3 sharp raps, then 2. Min-jun's signal. Amara crept to the door, peering through the peephole. But it wasn't Min-jun standing in the hallway. It was Kang Dai. She fumbled with the locks, pulling the door open. He looked like hell, suit rumpled, a fresh cut above his eyebrow, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. But his eyes were alert, scanning the apartment behind her. Is she asleep? His voice was rough, like he hadn't rested in days. Yes. What are you doing here? Min-jun said you were handling. It's handled. He stepped inside, and Amara caught the scent of smoke and something metallic. Blood, she realized. Where is she? Amara pointed to the smaller bedroom. Kang Dai moved toward it like a man drawn by gravity, and after a moment's hesitation, Amara followed. Hana was curled under the blankets, one hand clutching the stuffed rabbit Amara had bought her from a corner store. In the dim light from the hallway, she looked impossibly small, vulnerable, precious. Kang Dai stood in the doorway, frozen. Amara watched him watch his daughter, saw the war playing out across his features, longing versus fear, love versus self-preservation. She'd seen that look before, in the mirror, in the days after Ikenna died, when she'd wanted to crawl into a grave beside him, but had a son who needed her to keep living. Carefully, she touched his arm. He flinched, but didn't pull away. She had nightmares the first 3 nights, Amara whispered. Woke up crying, signing for you. I'd hold her until she fell back asleep, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't you. Kang Dai's throat worked. I was making sure no one could hurt her again. I know, but she doesn't understand that. She just knows her father disappeared after her home exploded. Amara's voice was gentle but firm. Go to her, please. For a moment she thought he'd refuse, that he'd retreat behind his walls and vanish again. Instead, he moved. He crossed to the bed, with surprising quietness for a man his size, and knelt beside it. His hand hovered over Hana's hair, trembling slightly, before finally, he touched her. Just his fingers against her temple, brushing back a strand of hair. Hana stirred, her eyes fluttering open. In the darkness, she couldn't see who it was at first. But then Kang Dai shifted, and light from the hallway caught his face. Her eyes went wide. Appa! Her hands flew up in frantic signs, and she was scrambling out of bed, launching herself at him. Kang Dai caught her, stumbling slightly, and then he was holding his daughter for the first time in a week. Really holding her. His arms wrapped around her small body, his face buried in her hair, and his shoulders shook. He was crying, silently, the way men who'd forgotten how to be vulnerable cry. Like it hurt, like it was being ripped out of him against his will. Hana pulled back, signing rapidly. You're okay? You're here? You're staying? Kang Dae's hand shook as he signed back. I'm okay. I'm here. Don't leave again, she signed, tears streaming down her face. Please don't leave. And Kang Dae, this man who'd built an empire on ruthlessness, who'd killed without hesitation just hours before, looked at his daughter and signed something Amara wasn't sure he'd ever signed before. I'm sorry. Then he pulled Hana close again and just held her, rocking slightly, like he was trying to convince himself she was real and safe and his. Amara backed quietly out of the room, her own vision blurred with tears. She closed the door halfway and returned to the small living room, giving them privacy. 20 minutes later, Kang Dae emerged. Hana was asleep again, finally peaceful. He found Amara making tea at the tiny kitchenette. She handed him a cup without a word. He took it, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through both of them. They sat at the small table, the silence heavy, but not uncomfortable. Thank you, he said finally. For keeping her safe. For everything. I love her, Amara said simply. It's not a job anymore. It's just who she is to me. Kang Dae studied her over his cup, and for the first time, Amara saw him truly look at her, not as an employee, not as a convenience, but as a woman, a person, someone who'd walked into his nightmare and hadn't run. You should be terrified of me, he said quietly. Why? Because you're dangerous. Amara met his eyes. My husband was killed buying groceries, Mr. Kim, a stray bullet from a gang fight he had nothing to do with. I learned that danger doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wear expensive suits or command empires. Sometimes it's just random, senseless. And if I spent my life being afraid of danger, I'd never live at all. You're either very brave or very foolish. Can't I be both? A small smile touched her lips. I think the bravest people are often a little foolish. Otherwise, we'd never do anything worth doing. Something shifted in Kang Dae's expression, a crack widening in the carefully constructed mask. I don't know how to do this. How to be softer. For her. Start by showing up. You did that tonight. That's enough. Is it? Amara reached across the table, her hand covering his before she could think better of it. His hand was large, scarred, warm, dangerous, and gentle all at once. She doesn't need you to be perfect. She needs you to be present. There's a difference. Kang Dae stared at their joined hands, something vulnerable and uncertain flickering across his face. He didn't pull away. You signed to me in Igbo once, he said suddenly. The first week. I heard you praying in Hana's room. Amara blinked, surprised. You understood? No, but I looked it up later. You were asking God to protect her, to help me remember I'm human. His eyes lifted to hers. Why would you pray for me? Because everyone deserves someone praying for them, even people who think they're beyond redemption. And what if they are? No one is. Her voice was fierce, certain. I've seen too much grace in my life to believe that anyone is too far gone. My husband used to say that light doesn't ask darkness for permission before it shines. It just shines. Kang Dae's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Barely. Briefly. And Amara's breath caught. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them were ready to name. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the intimacy. He pulled back, reading the message, his expression hardening back into the mask. Min Jun found the leak. Who? Someone I trusted. His voice was flat, lethal. Someone who's been with me for 5 years. Amara's stomach dropped. What are you going to do? What I have to. He stood, the businessman killer returning. I need you to stay here for 3 more days. After that, we're moving to a new property. Somewhere they'll never find. And then what? You just keep us locked away forever. If that's what it takes to keep us safe. Yes. That's not living, Mr. Kim. That's just existing. Amara stood too, frustration bleeding into her tone. Hana needs more than a gilded cage. She needs sunshine and friends and a life that's bigger than fear. She needs to be alive, Kang Dae countered. Everything else is negotiable. Not to her, not to me. They stood facing each other, tension crackling like electricity. 2 stubborn forces, both trying to protect the same child, both utterly convinced they were right. Why do you care so much? Kang Dae asked suddenly, his voice almost accusing. She's not your daughter. This isn't your fight. You could walk away right now, go back to your safe life, your son. Because I lost everything once, and learned that love is the only thing worth holding on to. Amara's composure cracked. I lost my husband. I almost lost my son to grief and anger. I know what it's like to watch someone you love suffer and feel powerless to stop it. And I will not stand by and watch you destroy your relationship with your daughter because you're too afraid to love her the way she deserves. Silence. Kangdae stared at her, something raw and exposed in his expression. You don't understand what you're asking, he said quietly. In my world, love is a weapon. Every enemy I have would use her against me. Use you against me. The moment they see you matter, you become targets. Then maybe, Amara said softly, you need to ask yourself if you're protecting her from your enemies or protecting yourself from feeling something real. The words hit him like a physical blow. Before he could respond, a soft sound made them both turn. Hana stood in the hallway, sleep-tousled, her rabbit clutched to her chest. She was watching them with wide, intelligent eyes. Are you fighting? She signed. Amara immediately softened, crossing to her. No, baby, just talking. Are you okay? Hana looked past her to her father, then signed carefully. Don't make Amara leave. Please. Kangdae's expression shattered. He knelt down to Hana's level, signing. I won't. I promise. Do you promise to stay too? Hana signed, hope and fear warring in her small face. Kangdae glanced at Amara, then back at his daughter, and slowly, like it cost him everything, he signed. I promise to try. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for Hana, it was enough. She hugged him, then reached out for Amara's hand, pulling them both together. The three of them stood in the tiny safe house living room, a broken family, learning how to heal. And somewhere in that moment, between fear and courage, between death and life, something dangerous and beautiful began to take root. Something that looked a lot like love. So let me ask you, are you Team Amara or Team Kangdae in this argument? Who do? You think is right? Drop your thoughts below, because I'm dying to know what you're thinking right now. And listen, if this story is hitting you in the feelings, do me a favor and subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss a single moment of what happens next.